Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Attractive Christians podcast, where we make Christianity a little less repulsive and a little more attractive and beautiful. I'm Annie, one of the producers. The Attractive Christians team is out enjoying the summer sun this week, so today we have another FAVES episode for you. This one was around episode 39 or 40, and it features our OG co-host Tucker Lamping. And this one was really interesting and included some great discussion. And there was also a thoughtful listener question about how to reconcile things in heaven. This one does come with a content warning. The headliner section is mainly about a case of child abuse in the church, and it includes some other dark topics as well. So please use discretion when listening. And as always, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Follow us on all the socials, and you can always get in touch with us by sending us a DM, or you can Gmail us at attractivechristians@gmail.com.
I don't miss you anymore. Listen to
Bro, how about freaking Andy choking you out, dog?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's a good doors open right there.
What the heck?
Do you see it? Is it still showing
You
up?
look like you just got into BDSM, like.
What? No, I was wrestling Andy, my little Vietnamese friend.
Oh, did you
We're
start
recording.
it?
Yeah, we're recording, by the way. And he thought that when they were talking about chokes in wrestling or jujitsu or MMA, that's the one, MMA, that you could just grab their throat with your hand and choke. So Andy, he's like, in order to make it a fair match, the rule was, did I tell you this? The rule was he had to survive for 45 seconds.
No. Was that the same rule last time?
Yeah, if he survived for 45 seconds, he won. And so his method was simply grab Ethan's throat as hard as he can with his hand and squeeze my trachea. And he has these long fingernails for some reason. He just never clips them. And so nobody can see it right now because it's an audio podcast, but my throat is covered in these like scratches all over my neck because he was just going with both hands after my neck with his nails. You sent me that before.
Have I sent you that? That's an old one.
Yeah, so this is like 3 days later, and my neck is still scarred. Unfortunately, no one at work has said anything about it. But friggin' Andy, if he's listening to this, thanks a lot.
People
are gonna think I'm doing weird stuff.
Ethan sent me a picture of it, the best part, and there's a zoomed in one of Andy just like digging his thumb into your freaking jugular vein.
Yeah, it looks like his thumb is 2 knuckles deep in my neck.
Oh, it's crazy. Like he's like touching your trachea.
Yeah, he's like, let me see if I can touch Ethan's spine through the front of his neck.
Oh, it's so brutal.
Anyways, welcome back, Attractives. How's it going?
It's currently, should we do like,
how's that
like
coming
Attractive Christians ASMR? Wait, let's see.
I don't think this mic is good enough for ASMR.
We're currently sitting at 5,200 feet,
5,200?
9:49 p.m. Yeah, 5,200 feet.
Oh, yeah, I guess about that.
We might be a little higher over here.
Or lower.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, welcome back to Attractive Christians. We just dove right into that one.
Yeah, I
that
was not ready.
Intro. You know why? It's because this is the latest we've ever recorded. We're recording at almost 10 p.m. on a work day for both of us. We both worked all day, and we both have work tomorrow.
Let me just say this. I did not work all day.
Oh, you didn't?
I'm on paternity leave.
Still?
Well, I just started. Monday. I started another 5 weeks of paternity leave.
Are you serious?
I'm
not
kidding. Yeah, full time, bro. They pay me to have kids.
Dang.
I only have to work 8 months this year.
I should have kids.
Yeah, well, 9 months technically. Plus, I get my PTO, so everything. Yeah, it's great.
Well, that's nice.
Great. No, it's awesome. Just start having kids.
I'll try. Okay, enough of this nonsense. Let's do some Rex.
Rex.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so did you watch the movie The Gray Man on Netflix with Ryan Gosling?
The Gray Man. No.
On what's her name?
Oh, is that the new one?
It was fair. It was okay. I think it came out last year.
Oh, really?
Came with Anna. What's her name? The Hispanic one.
No.
And I almost said Ferris too.
Anna Ferris.
Anna de Armas. Ana de Armas. I knew it was a weapon.
Do you like her because she's attractive?
Yes, she is an attractive. just like our listeners.
Take that, models.
Ana de Armas, which is Spanish for of guns. But a couple months ago, I read The Gray Man, the book, because it was a book like 15 years ago it came out.
Oh, wow.
As a book. I read the book. The movie was fairly good. It was pretty good. Like, it was just a fun action movie. So I read the book, and I'm reading the second Gray Man novel now. Because they're just good. He just sucks you in. It's not super realistic, but he does know his military and combat stuff. So he's talking all about the gear. He's talking about the tactics and the, I don't know, international espionage. They're just fun. They're not substantive necessarily, but they're super fun and they're well written.
Yeah.
Mark Greaney.
It's like Jack Reacher or, James Bond, like Ian Fleming's Bonds. They're just fun action thrillers.
Yeah. And in the 1.5 that I've read, there's like no sexual content, which is kind of nice. It's just action, adventure. There's obviously some vulgarity, but it's not over the top. It's just like a fun, I'd say it's a PG-13 read relatively. It's definitely a little bit more violent than the movie was. So maybe not PG-13. I don't know. But yeah, they're good. So the Gray Man series by Mark Greaney.
Okay.
I think.
Now the real question is, when you say reading it now, do you have a physical copy?
Yeah.
Or do you do Audible?
It's on my nightstand. You want to go look at it?
Do you feel like it's justified for someone who does Audible to say they read a book?
No, they should say they listened to it.
I agree with that.
They can't say they read it because literally the act of reading is using your eyes.
I had someone tell me, I can't remember who told me this, but they were like, "Yeah, I read 25 books this year," and I was like, "Wow, that's awesome! That's a lot of books to buy." And they're like, "Yeah, I did it on Audible," and I was like, "Well."
That's just like podcasting.
Yeah, that's just listening to the book.
That's like saying our listeners right now are reading our episode.
I don't have a problem with people like listening to books because that's fun, I'm listening to Dune right now. And it's a great like experience. You get to listen to the voice acting kind of going on. And it's enjoyable. But I would never say after I get done with it that I read Dune.
I would agree with that.
I listened to Dune.
I mean, literally, that's the same as our listeners right now saying they read our episode.
Exactly, like in reverse. Yeah, exactly.
Like they're not. They're listening to our episode.
The inverse arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. I would say that you probably absorb the same amount of information, listening as reading, but you didn't read it.
But you didn't read it. Yeah.
That might be a hot take, though. I wonder if people disagree with that.
That is a hot take. But I just don't think that you can actually say that you read it because I think the function of reading requires your eyes to look over written word and interpret written word.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. You'd probably argue the same. And you're an author, so you know more than me, more than anybody, actually.
I need to get my books into Audible, too. I feel like that would help boost it a lot.
It's fun to do Audible, but it's not like, I like reading.
Do Audible? Bro,
but sometimes
do Audible?
I do Audible, dude.
Bro, are you doing audibles?
I'm doing audibles right now.
Yeah, I can tell you did some audibles before you came over.
9:54 p.m. and they kicked in.
The audibles are kicking in, bro.
Not the audibles.
Okay, what were you gonna say?
That's so funny. Well, no, I think that Audible's great, but it's not comparable to actually reading a book.
I mean, this is going to be a rabbit hole. I'll just say this. Our culture at large for the past decade to 5 years, whatever, has had a really tentative relationship with the English language as far as certain things we've allowed people to say and do and get away with. And how we're rebranding words all the time. Like controversial things, controversial words that have been redefined lately. But yeah. Anyway, what's your rec?
So my rec right now, well, I can't recommend Dune yet because I haven't listened through it all.
Oh, you're reading Dune right now?
Dude, I read Dune. But I will say, what was I? Oh, yeah. I was going to recommend the new Nothing Nowhere album.
Oh, I don't know about that. That was kind of mid.
Okay. If you listen through like song 4 to the whole thing. End. Like the first song, John Wayne is good. And then there's like a couple mid songs. And then the others are like pretty solid.
Maybe I'll listen again.
I think for me, it's the stuff that happens in the background, like the slide guitar and the other riffs, because he tried to do like a punk with like some really small country hints. I enjoyed what he attempted there.
Okay.
Anyway, I really liked that.
I do think he kind of has reached a point where his music all sounds the same, and he hasn't like done anything novel to make it really stand out.
Yeah. Well, he's not like, here's the thing I've realized about him as an artist. He's not trying to be everybody's favorite artist. And that's what I appreciate about him, because he's kind of just like your favorite artist. He's the type of guy that the dudes that want really good songs go to.
When they want to listen to someone who already made the same song.
No, he writes the
10 times.
songs for it, like most people. I mean, not most people, but he writes a lot of songs.
He writes most songs in the world
writes
today.
Every song in the world. But no, he did a lot of ghostwriting stuff there. So I think that he's done a lot of like recording studio stuff and like big stuff.
I think you can say
he's kind of like your favorite artist.
You can say he does have a signature sound, like he has established his own sound now. But I'm kind of tired of listening to it because I heard this album and the last album, and if you played me one song from either one, I couldn't tell you which album it was from. You know what I mean?
That's not the point. He's got a signature sound. Like, you could tell me that it's Nothing Nowhere, though.
Yes, but I'm saying, like, if I showed you a Death Cab for Cutie song from one album, from one of their classic albums versus a different one, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is Death Cab for Cutie.
I actually probably wouldn't know because I don't listen to a lot of Death Cab.
Okay, well, insert...
I know, like, the one famous Death Cab song.
Noah Gunderson is another good example. Like, all of his albums are very different, but you also know it's Noah Gunderson.
You know, that's a good point. And I appreciate both. I appreciate the experimental side and more of, like, the consistent side.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I really appreciated some of the things he tried to do because they were more fun than anything. It wasn't like an album that I think he put out as, like, this is going to be huge. He just kind of puts stuff out, and it's fun. I don't know. I enjoy it.
Throwing poop against the wall, seeing what sticks.
And then the other one I had was an anti-rec.
Not again. Is this a good one?
This one, I watched The Little Things. Have you seen this? With Denzel Washington and...
I've seen the trailer.
It's got Denzel Washington, the one dude who was who was Freddie Mercury with the funny mouth and the face.
Oh, Rami Malek?
Yeah. And Jared Leto. And up until the point, I can't tell you when, there's up until one point, I didn't look at the Rotten Tomatoes. I don't like to look at Rotten Tomatoes before I watch a movie.
I do.
Yeah, it's probably a better idea.
It's 45 from the critics, 67 from the audience.
Which I think the audience should have been lower. It's so bad.
Really?
It's like, take Denzel. I'm just telling everybody this to say don't watch it if you ever hear this. And Denzel plays the classic Denzel as a cop. He's washed up. It's like the exact same character from Man on Fire.
Denzel has like 3 characters that he rotates through, and he plays them really well.
And they're all Denzel. It's like Denzel plays Denzel Washington.
No, but it's not like he just has one. It's like he has 3.
You're
like
right.
It's like the crooked cop with a dark past or alcohol problem. And then there's like the really, really good all-around stand-up guy.
The funniest part is that first one describes the exact character he is in this movie.
Yeah, but then there's like the Equalizer or Remember the Titans, where he's just an all-around good guy.
He's just like a solid dude.
Yeah, and then there's probably a third one I don't know about, or I can't think of off the top of my head. But it's like, you're always like, it's
maybe
one of
like
those.
Maybe like the mysterious badass with like a dark past.
Well, it's kind of like the Equalizer.
Like I was thinking about, I guess, Book of Eli.
Oh, yeah.
You know, maybe that type of character where he's like
blind,
moody and blind.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, he read that Bible, by the way, though.
Hey, I mean, okay. If you don't have eyes, then Braille counts as reading. Because you're still going line by line. You know, you're interpreting symbols. You're not just listening to...
That's totally fair. I just had to throw it in there.
I'd count that as reading.
I had to throw it in there. Yeah, you know, I actually would too. Braille counts as reading.
Okay, so don't see The Little Things.
Don't watch The Little Things. I thought it was really bad. So it was fun up until a point, like 3/4 of the way in, If you watch it, you'll know exactly what I mean.
So it just had a bad ending.
It takes a really bad turn. It just sucks.
Do they get like superpowers?
No, it's like the type of movie where you're like, really? That's how you decided to take this? Like,
that's like the movie Hitchcock.
Everything you get to is like, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then you're like, oh, really? That's it? That's what you decided to do?
Well, did you see the movie Hitchcock with Will Smith?
No. Oh, yes. The old Hitchcock, like old school. It was like 2008 or 9.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Like you think it's a superhero crime action movie, and then halfway through you're like, oh, they're Greek gods suddenly. And then it's a weird ending. And it's like, that was less enjoyable than the first half.
I don't remember it at all.
Me neither. I just remember being like, this is a weird turn. I don't like it.
It's funny that you brought it up because I have a Blu-ray disc of it that my grandpa gave me in like my closet for some reason.
It's just Will Smith's face close up on the cover.
It's so funny. Anyway, so that's all I had. A pro rec and an anti-rec.
He was in Hitch and Hitchcock. They're just gonna keep adding one syllable each time.
Hitchcock.
Hitchcockson.
Hitchcock.
Hitchcockson. Hitchcockson. Hitchcockson town.
Was that before or after his husband slapped him? Oh, wait.
You missed that joke. Wait. Yeah, because he slapped Chris Rock. Anyways.
And it was never mind, it was a joke.
He went like Moses in the Old Testament and slapped the rock. Okay.
That's actually good.
Give us our headliners.
Headliners.
Okay. For headliners tonight, this evening, I have an interesting one. This actually was published on June 30th, so very recently. And it's definitely a bit of a heads up on this one. It's kind of dark. Essentially, here's a Southern Baptist pastor, and he just got charged with essentially abusing a toddler, I believe a 2-year-old, quite young. And, again, going back to the fact that, we're talking about pastors, essentially, we've hit on pastors many a time, pastors that have sort of been disgraced or run into these problems, or again, do something like this where they have basically gone and done something so horrendous that it comes out, and now they're going to be known. I mean, now this guy.
Did you already say a trigger warning?
I tried to say dark content, but yeah, trigger warning.
For abuse.
He essentially abused a toddler. Apparently this is on tape. So
he had it on his own phone.
They discovered that he was abusing this toddler on tape. It was recorded. So very disgusting. And honestly just debased and terrible situation. So, I was thinking through this, and in the past month or so, I've also been watching a lot of like Protestant and Catholic debates. Oftentimes people in the comment section will go to the classic, like, well, Roman pedophile priests, right? And then I think of, well, honestly, I feel like the Southern Baptist Convention is getting hit with a lot of this as well. Lots of abuse, lots of sexual assault, lots of really dark things. And it reminds me of the fact that everybody in these settings, and there is no excuse for this, but everybody is subject to the human condition. That said, it's difficult to make a claim, pedophile priests, all priests are pedophiles. Well, on the other side, you have pedophile pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention, right?
Well, I think I'll just interject this. I don't know if this is where you're going or not, but I think it is statistically higher in the Catholic Church because of the celibacy.
Probably.
Like, you have sexual urges. Like, I do believe certain people have the gift of celibacy and would be totally fine.
Yes.
Not having a spouse or partner their entire life, and they're perfectly content. And that is a gift, which is commendable and should be not praised. What's the word? It should be celebrated when somebody like genuinely has that. But to say none of our church leaders will ever be married, it's like, well, granted, there's no way to tell if all of them have the gift of celibacy or not. So I've always thought that that's a interesting thing, that like these priests or fathers or monks have sexual urges and then they come out in really unhealthy ways because they're being repressed by their institution their whole life.
Yeah, and I would probably agree with that. Like, if you get people essentially in a position who are, I wouldn't say forced into celibacy, but put in a position where they're required to be celibate and they have these urges, they're probably going to have certain outlets that are not beneficial. Statistically, you're probably going to have higher accounts of this in that setting. That said, I mean, honestly, the Southern Baptist Convention has had quite a run over the last 2-3 years with all of these things coming out in their side of things too. Lots of SA, lots of spiritual abuse, lots of abuse of minors, right?
I mean, just because yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
I'll share my thoughts after.
My point simply is, I don't think that I would argue, just given, again, I'm using this in a way as a point to say, I don't think just because someone is Roman or because somebody is Protestant or because someone is, charismatic, that they're above these issues happening in their church.
No, of course not.
Right.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, though?
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, that like kind of regardless of your theology, like you could have perfect theology, perfect orthodox theology, and still act out in really destructive, harmful ways, whether that's sexual abuse, whether that's other kinds of abuse, like Mark Driscoll just being mean to people.
Abuse, yeah. Just being abusive in nature, just like generally,
Or literally list any sin possible. Like having good theology doesn't straighten out your heart and your actions. Like that's why Paul and Jesus both make similar points about like the kingdom belongs to the children, Jesus says, or the kingdom belongs to such as these, talking about
innocent,
the children.
Right, the innocence in them.
Yeah, and Paul says, I've hidden things from the wise and revealed them to the foolish. It's like, okay, clearly you can't educate somebody into holiness. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, no, exactly. Well, in the process of looking at this, I was looking into just scripture, trying to kind of make sense of how scripture approaches this as well, right? And so, going back to Paul, like you said, I actually went to 2 Timothy in this because I was going to make a point from here. It essentially starts off chapter 3 in 2 Timothy. Essentially, he's saying, understand in the last days there will come times of stress, for men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, inhuman, implacable, slanderers.
What translation are you reading?
It's a really old one, don't worry.
The KJV?
No, it's a New American, no, not New American Standard. It's
Bros dwelling in 1611.
It's American, it's Revised Standard Version, something like that.
It's okay, you'll get it out
It's
eventually.
an older one. It's my great-grandfather's old Bible, actually.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's
a nice binding.
It's got like all his old notes. We had it rebound.
Oh.
Anyway, I've been carrying it around. It's nice and simple.
So basically, you whitewash the outside of it. And inside
the outside
still
was
the KJV.
cracking and breaking. So yes, inside it's a Revised Standard Version.
Isn't that just the modified KJV?
It might be. I don't know. Oh. I'd have to look into the translation itself. I know it was a more modernized version of a translation. So
what was the word you just said?
Revised?
No, in the verse. Profligates. Profligates.
Well, that was next. I didn't even say that yet. It said implacable slanderers.
Let's see what it says in an actual English translation.
Fierce, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding the form of religion but denying the power of it. So, again, another point to say, I don't think God denies that there is power in religion. That's a side note, but he's saying that these people essentially reject anything good, do everything that is bad. So continuing down to verse 10, he goes, now you have observed my teaching, my conduct, my aim in life, my faith, my patience, my love, my steadfastness, my persecutions, my sufferings, what befell me at Antioch. What?
Bro, you sound like you're a pilgrim. What befell me at Antioch? You want me to read it in English?
And Alistair, what persecutions I endured, yet from them all the Lord rescued me.
All the Lord?
From them all, the Lord rescued me. I'm just jumping back in after you totally interrupted me. It's fine. Indeed, all who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, while evil men and impostors will go on from bad to worse, deceivers and deceived. But as for you, continue in what you have learned and have firmly believed, knowing from whom you learned it. So again, we could go on. Obviously, I just wanted to highlight a couple of sections of that. I think ultimately, it's a reminder, essentially, right? We're looking at Paul essentially highlighting these different various evil deeds being done, right? He's essentially warning Timothy of these things that people are going to do. And then he goes into this remembrance of, but now you've observed all these things in my life, all of these things because I am of faith now in Christ. My whole life has been changed. You've seen my steadfastness, my love, my conduct. Again, we have to remember Paul was killing and persecuting Christians.
Yeah.
Right? And then go ahead.
I was going to say, this isn't the only place that he says, follow me or like imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Exactly.
And when I was a pastor, I always asked myself that, like, am I living a life where I could look at one of my students and say, live just like me? Because I'm living just like Christ. It's like, I don't think I ever reached that point, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's a really good point, because again, Paul is telling people, look at how I've lived. And then he says, well, you know what? Evil men and imposters will go on. They'll go from bad to worse. There'll be deceivers and deceived in that. You continue in what you have learned and have firmly believed, knowing from whom you learned it, and from how, and interesting, and how from childhood you have been acquainted with the sacred things which are able to instruct you for salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. I mean, I think that Scripture is pretty clear in the sense that it warns us of the fact that there will be people constantly, right? People who are going to do these things, people even in the church, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think this is simply describing the church, but he's warning Timothy of his engagement with people who are going to encounter, that he's going to encounter in this way, right?
Yeah.
And essentially saying, but listen, that does not have to be you. Look at how I've conducted my life, how I've lived my life, and instead continue to remember these things. You know this, you've believed it, right? You have a firm foundation, you're well acquainted with these things, right? So I don't know, I just think that all of these things come up constantly, and we'll probably have, 100 more in the next 10 years.
At least.
I guarantee that there'll be another pastor who's had some sort of abusive relationship with a child.
Yeah, I mean, that's. Like, sadly, I wish I could say, like, yeah, this is the last one ever, but realistically it's not. And the fact that somebody has a occupation of being a pastor also doesn't prevent you from doing terrible things like this,
Yeah.
Like, simply just because you, like, this is one thing I think that people assume pastors are more holy or more righteous or more resistant to sin simply because they've studied the Bible more or they went to school for it. And like I said earlier, the more you know about theology doesn't make you more holy. It doesn't necessarily change your actions. There's plenty of atheists who study the Bible really in depth and probably know more than me or our listeners, or, and that doesn't change their heart. Knowledge alone doesn't change the heart. It's not, I'm not saying this isn't sad, but I'm saying it's not surprising that just because someone's a pastor, they still can do terrible things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I also just lastly want to say this list, I kind of like it more in the NIV at the beginning of chapter 3, because it says, in the last days, people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents. It's funny that that's on the list. ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. So,
Yeah.
and then they are the kind who worm their way into homes and gain control over gullible women who are loaded down with sins and are swayed by all kinds of... Wait, the women or the dudes?
The women, I believe.
Who are loaded down with sins and are swayed by all kinds of evil desires.
Because it says gullible women who are loaded down with sins. Yeah.
In English, that could kind of refer to either one. They are who are... I don't know. Anyways, yeah, good. I mean, it's sad headliner for sure.
Yeah.
That this dude abused... Was it just one kid or...
I believe he had...
That's so messed up.
Other stuff found on his phone. But this was specifically with... he had other material. So he was engaging and indulging in that sort of,
It doesn't say how many kids there were.
I don't want to say entertainment. I believe it was just the one. But yeah, it's just, it's really dark. And part of it reminds me that, for one, if you're a parent out there, I mean, I've come to this point, Hosea is not hanging out with anybody else, but you just don't trust people the same. And I think that that's okay.
It's like a balance because you also don't want to teach your kid that all other people are bad, and don't trust anyone else. Because like the world is also full of good people and great people and, Christian or not, that they can still be great people who would take great care of your kid. And you don't want to teach them that everyone else you see in public is an enemy. And so I don't know how to go about that, but
yeah.
I definitely will teach my kids signs to watch for or things to be aware. Like if a guy does, or if a person does this to you or says this to you, I also, this line is interesting in the article. Elwing, the pastor who did this, had publicly spoken out against the Southern Baptist Convention implementing sex abuse reforms, stating in a February 2023 post on Twitter that it would be the end of the Southern Baptist Convention. So like he literally spoke out against the SBC investigating these charges.
And putting in reforms for it too.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Because that's like a political thing. It's like, oh, we're not like the Catholics. We don't need to be investigated. And it makes you wonder, like, was it because he genuinely believed that? Or was it because he was just, oh, no, I'm going to be found out,
Well, probably because of the finding out.
Or both.
We'll just say, yeah.
Because I'm sure that people spoke out against that who weren't child abusers. But it's just suspicious. Why would you be against sex abuse reform?
I feel like that's one of those things that's like everybody can be on board with.
Right.
That. Like you could be left, right, Catholic, Protestant, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's just a good thing.
But you could not be Muslim. Controversial take. Since they do have rules in the I almost said the Torah, in the Quran about how men can punish their wives physically.
Yeah, well, that's a
topic for a different
very
day.
hot can of worms. Let's just avoid that one today. But I see where you're going. And yes.
Almost everybody would be on that same page.
I think you're referring to Sharia law.
Yeah. Also, they ruled just a couple years ago. The official Muslim court ruled that you can beat your wife with a stick smaller than either your pinky or your thumb. I can't remember which one it was. It has to be skinnier than your pinky or your thumb.
Oh, well, that's reasonable. No,
I've never hit Anna with a stick bigger than
horrible.
my thumb.
No, definitely not bigger than my thumb.
No,
that's
only
so bad. What the heck? Bigger than your thumb? Not bigger than your thumb?
Not wider.
That's so dumb.
Like you can't hit him with a baseball bat.
Oh yeah, of course, because that would be dumb.
Because that would be too far.
Too far. Golly.
I know, right?
That's actually so bad.
Classic Muhammad, am I right?
Well, that wasn't Muhammad.
No,
I don't know. That was some elders or something of the Muslim.
And how they interpreted the Quran. Yeah. And again, just to clarify, I know plenty of wonderful Muslims, and they're great people, and not all Muslims are like that.
And not all Muslims practice Sharia law.
Yeah.
And there's multiple types of Muslims.
Well, this is the last thing I'll say. I think that one thing our culture needs to learn to distinguish between is the difference between critiquing an idea and critiquing a person. So I am absolutely all for critiquing the idea of Islam and the teaching and theology of Islam. But in saying that, I'm not saying Muslims are bad people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because, yeah.
If you beat your wife, you're probably a bad person.
Yeah.
If
Or-
your theology dictates you beat your wife,
It's bad theology.
it's a bad theology.
Yeah.
If you don't follow that theology, you're not a bad person.
Or if you're a Baptist pastor, you might have good theology and abuse children.
Exactly.
So don't
That's
do
true.
that.
Theology does not dictate good moral actions. Anyway,
We brought it full circle.
that's a full circle.
Nice.
Well, that's the headliners.
Yeah.
A bit of a sad one, a bit of a bummer. It's sad to see these things happen in the church. And I think it's good to have conversations around it because these are the things that people bring up against Christians, right? These are the things that people say, well, you're a Christian or you're a Catholic, right? Let's say you're Roman Catholic. You're a Catholic. Your priests, SA kids.
And that's the other thing is just because a priest or a Baptist pastor does it, it doesn't mean that Christianity is suddenly false.
Yeah, that can't be the dictator.
That
of
argument is
truth in
really-
Christianity. Yeah, that's a shallow argument.
Like it's the metaphor, the comparison I use is say that there's a school started by missionaries in 1940. Okay. Started by great people. They were great missionaries. They wanted to reach people. And then fast forward 80 years. 80 years in 2020. And let's say one of the teachers abuses that kid, like one of their students. That's like blaming the founders of the school in the 1940s and being like, you created the school and kids got abused. It's like, no, that's not the fault of the founders or the teaching of the school or the board of the school. It's simply the fault of that one teacher who
It's like
abused
blaming
kid.
the state if, let's say, a teacher in a public school acts out of line and has a intimate
Yeah.
relationship with a student in
Yeah.
high school. Let's say I knew a kid that in high school
But people make that argument
had a
all the
relationship
time.
with the teacher.
It's like, how many pastors are greedy or, abusers? It's like, yeah, that's not an argument against Christianity at all.
It's an argument against those pastors for sure.
Yeah, because
but
nothing
that
in Christianity supports
yeah.
their actions.
definitely doesn't invalidate scripture.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good conclusion on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you have some crowd meat
I have
surfing?
Yeah, both of those. So, yeah, we don't have a sound effect for that. So let's just say crowd surfing and meat. Play them both.
Crowd surfing.
Yeah, so once again, we're combining crowd surfing. And this is the good news, y'all.
Good news.
The good news is we have too much crowd surfing for one episode.
That's a hell yeah moment.
That's a HECK yeah moment.
HE double hockey sticks
Um,
to all my Under Oath fans.
So we have 3 emails this week. 3 Gmails, pardon me.
Oh yeah, sorry.
we-
It's different.
Okay, side note, I was thinking about this week. Why do we say I got an email instead of I got an e-letter? Because if someone sends you a letter in the mail, you don't say I got a mail. You say I got a letter in the mail. Email is the delivery system, but the individual item is called a letter.
I think they're just called emails and they've always been that way.
Yeah,
And
but they shouldn't
That's just
be.
it, you
They
know?
should be called e-letters.
Take it up with Bill Gates. I don't know.
Anyway, we got 3 e-letters. So
Editors.
I'm gonna do 2 this week because they're both all 3 of them ask really good, really
Wow.
big, really deep questions.
Does that say Perry's?
Yes, it does.
That's old school.
This guy's old school.
No way.
So we're gonna go through 2 of them and save one for next week, just because we have so much to get through, and we'll be way over time if we try to do all 3. Maybe we'll just get through one. Who knows? We'll find out. So Alan Black, shout out Alan Black. I think he's written us before, hasn't he?
I don't remember
Or no.
Alan writing us, but Alan,
Maybe
shout
not.
out. Thank you.
Yeah. So he says, "What's up, models or Perry's?" LOL. That's such a good throwback. If you don't know what a parry is, you got to go way back to
You
the
have to
beginning
go way back.
in the archives. I had a question about a pretty popular chunk of verses in Colossians. In Colossians 1:15 through 20, Paul writes this beautiful poem on Jesus. I'm sure you've read it or heard it 1,000 times, but I'm curious on your thoughts on specifically verse 20, which reads, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. Colossians 1:20 ESV. What does it mean to reconcile things in heaven? I know Satan was cast out of heaven. Does this refer to that? Or is there more? Love what y'all are doing. Keep up the good work, Big Al. Thanks, Big Al.
Okay, first of all, if you
Weird
go by
Al.
Big Al, that's awesome.
What
I
a
love that.
Weird Al.
No, don't listen to Ethan. If you go by Big Al, that is awesome.
Wait, do you not know who Weird Al is?
Yeah, I do. But
Weird Al Yankovic?
Yeah, it's Yankovic.
No, it's Yankovic.
Yankovic. He's
Anyways.
Jewish, by the way.
So this is Big Al. Big
Okay.
Al Black. So that's 6 verses. I don't want to read all 6 verses because his specific question was about what does it mean to reconcile things in heaven. And so I've obviously had more time to sit on this than Tucker has because I read it earlier.
I'm reading it right now.
So
As fast as I can. I'm interpreting instantly.
the live interpretation. It's like going to one of those Bible studies where you read the verse and then say, "How does this make you feel?"
I feel so good.
I feel so encouraged.
I feel so encouraged. Jesus.
I feel convicted.
Anyway, we're not making fun of people who go to Bible studies. Just the attitude.
Just people who interpret by way of feelings. I'm going to feel my way through the scriptures.
Is it 115 through? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
So this is one of the first hymns of the Christian faith, actually. I'm just going to talk while Tucker reads it. So this is one of the earliest hymns. Paul kind of writes this hymn or this song or psalm, and it's kind of just saying how great and mighty Christ is and how he is before everything and in everything and through everything. And basically that nothing in the universe was created without him, that it all has been made through him. In other words, it's kind of a fancy way of saying he is God, God is Jesus. There is no difference between God and who Jesus is. So, what does it mean to reconcile things in heaven? What are you looking up?
Hold on.
Oh, you're just Googling everything.
I'm trying to remember the verse reference.
According to AI, what it means is...
I can't remember. Thank you, AI. AI interpretation. AI exegesis.
AI Jesus.
Okay, yeah.
You're reading it in like this ancient script. I feel like a monk wrote that Bible by hand.
Probably. My great grandfather wrote this Bible by hand.
What's that word? Rites? R-I-T-E-S?
Get out of here.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'll read it in ESV on my laptop. The difference between my laptop and this Bible is I have 3, what are these called?
Like those the ribbons?
I have 3 ribbons.
Ribbon markers?
And I have none of those ribbons in my laptop.
True.
So it's hella not cool.
Okay, I also want to mention this while Tucker is researching on the fly. Keep in mind that when the Bible, 99% of the time, maybe 100% of the time, when it uses the word heaven or heavens, it's not talking about a place where God lives, right? Have we talked about this before on the podcast? Heavens?
Yes.
I think we did.
The heavens.
So basically what it means when it's talking about the heavens or heaven is like the sky. Like Genesis 1:1, God created the heavens and the earth. It doesn't mean God made a place for him to live and he made a place for us to live, right? He didn't like make his own invisible spiritual dwelling place. He already existed way before that. So what it means to an ancient person is simply the sky. Everything up there that you can see but not touch, and everything down here that you can see and touch. Does that make sense? So remember, from the perspective of an ancient person, you see the stars moving in the sky, you see the clouds, you see the sun, the moon, and they tracked planets. They were very smart. They were very intelligent, but they thought that the Earth was the center of the universe until, over a millennia later. So they thought that there's two realms, up there and down here, right? They also thought the world was flat.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the heavenly realm, yes, they thought of it being up there, but it was also, they understood there to essentially be a heavenly place, essentially a heavenly worship going on with God and the angels all present, right? If Christ sits at the right hand of the Father, there is, in essence, textually a place where God is, where God dwells in these heavenly realms.
I would say yes and no. Paul doesn't think that God just lives up there and he left us to our own bidding down here. I think they thought of it as just a spatial place. And so when they want to ascribe like glory or majesty or something to God, of course they use the metaphor of a high place.
Yeah.
Right? They go up the mountain. The top of the mountain is where Moses meets with God. Like symbolically, it's a high place. I don't think Paul thinks God lives up there, humans are down here. So what this is called a merism, M-E-R-ism. You know what that means? It's kind of like, it's the same as saying alpha and omega or A to Z.
I don't know the definition of merism, but I think I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means
east to west, as far as the east is from the west. So things will be, exactly.
It's kind of like naming the lowest thing and the highest thing, or naming the first thing and the last thing. And it implies that includes everything in the middle. Like if I say A to Z, it includes the other 24 letters of the alphabet in between them, right? So I think what he's saying is when he says whether on heaven or in earth, Jesus has reconciled all things, it's saying everything has been reconciled, right? Top to bottom, bottom to top, earth to heavens, heaven. So again, don't think of it as a spiritual place or like Paul speaking literally, like Jesus went up and did something in heaven. It's more of like saying everything you could possibly imagine, Jesus has atoned for it and made peace with it through his blood. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how I would read this, as a merism. And that's the same thing. I would argue you could say the same thing in Genesis 1:1 as well. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth and everything in between, and everything else. It's like the highest and the lowest. It's just kind of meant to encapsulate everything. So going to the Satan was cast out of heaven, also technically not in the Bible. Did you know that?
What is Satan cast out of heaven?
Yeah.
What is that in?
John Milton, Paradise Lost.
Okay. Yeah, it's not. I knew it wasn't scriptural. I think, would that be pulled from no? What is that even pulled from? At least biblically,
It starts with an E, rhymes with Ezekiel.
I was trying to remember what that's even inferred from biblically from him, because there's I can't remember all the details on it because I know I did this years ago, but it's not actually biblical to say Satan was cast out of heaven.
Well,
but it is.
Jesus in one point says, "I saw Satan fall like lightning" in Luke 18, I believe, or 10:18. There's 18 and a 10.
There are some inferences here,
but it mainly comes from Ezekiel. I want to say 16 off the top of my head. I could be wrong. It could be 31, but it talks about the king of Tyre fell from heaven, which is a really weird statement, but it's talking about a human king. And a lot of people think he's speaking symbolically about a king, but really meaning Satan. But that's a really weird thing to say. It'd be like if I said Justin Trudeau fell from heaven and became a demon. I'm talking about another human leader. So that's where that comes from.
Interesting.
That's where John Milton pulled that from.
Okay, so I have some thoughts, but did you have other thoughts you were finishing up?
That's about it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been on this tear recently because I'm going Catholic. I'm just kidding. I'm going Anglican Catholic, which is actually really fun because I think there's a lot of leeway theologically where you can kind of jump around to different things and start really diving into them beyond. I mean, the faith itself is very creedal. And so
cradle to grave.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's you don't have to just say like, yes, if Genesis was not literal, then you're not a Christian. Like, I think certain Protestant churches I've been in have definitely been that way. Anyway, so I've been going through Hebrews from a different perspective. I've had a lot of conversations. We had those conversations here with the deacon, but a lot of in-depth thought on Hebrews. So just reevaluating Hebrews. And there's actually, I'm trying to remember, there's a podcast I listen to. There's a Baptist pastor, actually. And let's see, I'm trying to remember his name because I sent it. Did I send that to you, Ethan?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember.
Is this coming back to
David
Colossians?
Moffat. No, yes, it will come back to Colossians. So David Moffat, he's a Baptist theologian, and he's been doing a lot of research on Hebrews and the purpose of Hebrews and what it means and what it's getting at. And so there's this section in Hebrews in chapter 9. I couldn't remember exactly where it was off the top of my head, so I was doing all that in-depth research on the fly here. But so
could have asked me. That's one of my favorite passages.
I'm jumping back to Colossians. So just reading through this myself, I don't know, it kind of is one of those things where you read it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe. Again, I'm not saying this is how it is. I'm just saying maybe, right? Verse 20, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. So then I jump over to Hebrews, and that is in let's actually start up in 9, verse 20. He says, I don't know who the author is. It's highly speculative who the author is of Hebrews. Some would say Paul. Some would say Apollo. You could say.
My prof thought it was Apollo.
Really?
Apollos.
There's speculation. I've even heard who is the female.
No. That one's less likely.
Who is it?
Even though people think that it's kind of a hot
Phoebe? No.
Dorcas. Maybe Phoebe.
Yeah, there's some speculation there. Some have even said like a pseudo Pauline author, like someone who made the kind of general claim of being Paul, but not Paul. Anyway.
Well, the Greek that they use is different than all of Paul's letters, so that kind of disqualifies Paul.
Yeah, it definitely makes it difficult to say Paul, but the theology would be the same if we're thinking of this as canonical.
Yeah. And
Hebrews is a really interesting book, right, to kind of wrestle through. Anyway, verse 20, 9:20, he's basically going back. I guess I should go back to 19.
Just start at Hebrews 1.
When Moses proclaimed every command of the law and to all the people, he took the blood of calves together with water, scarlet wool, and branches of hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll with all the people. He said, "This is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you to keep." In the same way, he sprinkled with the blood both the tabernacle and everything used in its ceremonies. In fact, the law requires that nearly everything be cleansed with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. There's that like remembrance of blood. So it's like constantly hitting that blood point.
Well, that's because of the covenants.
Exactly.
I think Moses would love heavy metal if he was alive today.
Moses would be doing windmills and spin kicks.
Moses would be punching those Reddit mods right in the neck beards.
Picking up change in the middle of the pit. So verse 23, it was necessary then for the copies of the heavenly things to be purified with these sacrifices, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Christ did not enter a sanctuary made with human hands that was only a copy of the true one. He entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence. Anyway, he keeps going on to talk about Christ's work in the presence. But it's really interesting to be reminded, at least in the Pauline letter in Colossians, Christ is reconciling the heavenly things to himself, again, by his blood. Then we jump over to Hebrews 9, and we have this reflection of the tabernacle, and Moses being essentially told, you have to sprinkle everything to purify it with the blood. And you jump down to Christ purifying the heavenly temple because it's essentially a copy in the heavenly realm of what's happening here on earth. And, for me in my situation, I've come to realize that is the Mass. So in our process of performing the Mass, which Mass, again, is that corporate worship experience. You're essentially going through the process of what they would have done essentially, in spirit, what is being essentially done in the heavenly realm, but it's also what was done in the tabernacle. And again, back to that heavenly realm piece, Christ is purifying the heavenly realms to himself. It's interesting. It's something I've been wrestling with lately, but it definitely made me think about it.
Yeah. One thing that I love about Hebrews 9 and 10 and why it's some of my favorite passages is because what the author is doing is placing a lot of the Israel's history and Christian theology in the context of Plato's philosophy. Did you know that? Because when he talks about the copies of things or the, like I was looking up trying to find the Greek word, because I've heard it translated as forms or shadows of the things. That's using Platonic language or Plato's language of saying like these were simply mirrors of something. And like when Paul says right now we see through a glass dimly or darkly, that's also like Platonic language because they live in a heavily Greek philosophy influenced area. So they're constantly referring to them and saying like definitely research it more on your own later.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because Paul and Hebrews a lot often kind of, and if you're not looking for it, you'll just read right through it. Same with 1 Corinthians 13 is one of the biggest ones. And that's the one that's read at wedding ceremonies, like when it's like, love is patient, love is kind. The whole second half of that chapter is just Plato's philosophy, kind of tying it to Christ. And like he is the actual real thing that we've been looking for, not the copy of the thing, if you're familiar with Plato's philosophy. But now we're way off track. And last thing I'll say too is that did you know Moses is an Egyptian name? And his Hebrew name is Moshe.
Well, that would make sense because he was
Moshe.
He grew up in an Egyptian household.
I'm just saying it all makes sense. He would definitely like heavy metal, Moshe.
Moshe. Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah, you see that?
I see where you're going.
Moshe is his Hebrew name. Moses is the Egyptian.
Yeah.
Moshe is the modern day heavy metal, sprinkling blood all over
That's
all
hilarious.
his junk. Anyways, we went way far afield on that one, Alan. So far afield
that we've missed our second one.
Yeah, I don't know if we have time for two more. Yeah, because actually these are both really good. Our boy Andre Brooks wrote in as well, who we had on the podcast a long time ago. And also Sean McMullen wrote in. So if both of you are listening.
Two awesome guys.
Yeah.
I'm excited for these questions.
Two great dudes. Why don't we just hit those next time so we can do them justice and not rush through them?
Yeah.
But if you're listening, thank you for writing. Everybody else, you can also still write in. You can Gmail us anytime your little heart desires. It's just attractivechristians@gmail.com. So thank you, Andre and Sean and Alan, Big Al.
Yeah.
For writing us.
Big shout out to Big Al for listening so long.
We're definitely going to hit those other ones next time.
Yeah, there's no way.
I just don't want to rush them, and because they're really, really big questions, big theological questions.
I love the theological ones. They're really fun. That was fun. And it actually really, really enjoyable. I want to go and research Platonic philosophy in Hebrews because that's one angle I haven't really approached it from as often. But
the correct one?
Well, again, it kind of just depends. I don't know. I would be interested to see how it actually plays out in the text. But like I said, if you are interested, David Moffat, I was listening to the On Script podcast.
Oh, I feel like I have heard of
podcast.
That.
David Moffat, I think I sent it to you. Maybe I didn't. I think I posted on the gram.
I don't know.
But David Moffat is a Baptist theologian digging into this himself. So Hebrews is just one of those texts that people often struggle with. We'll just put it that way. And I think that, there are a lot of really educated people struggling through it and trying to understand what it's getting at. So
yeah,
I definitely recommend that. Checking out David Moffat's thoughts on Hebrew.
Are you dropping a wreck into the meat?
I'm dropping a meat wreck. Wrecked meat.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, so why don't we wrap it up there? We're right at an hour and a minute. So thanks, y'all, for listening.
Did you just say y'all?
I'm experimenting, you know? Just because I'm 33 now doesn't mean I can't experiment. And by the way, not a single Perry wished me happy birthday.
Oh.
But
Oh.
It's okay. Yeah. But no, I'm kidding. Thank you, models, for listening. Follow us on Instagram. Share it with your friends. Leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. A good one. If it's a bad one, you can just keep it to yourself.
We'll probably fight you over it if it's a bad one.
Ooh.
I will identify your, what is it?
Are you going to pull a Kendrick Lamar and like post their house address?
With little pin locations on top of it. Except I think in his case he put like the sex offender mark on there.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like the registered sex offender. If you look up registered sex offender, anyway, doesn't matter.
Whatever happened with that beef? Is it over?
Drake released another song on a separate album with a different artist that kind of attempted to clap at Kendrick, I think. But I think Kendrick smoked him so bad he couldn't ever come back from it.
Really? You think people just got tired of it and moved on?
Oh, dude, if they had kept dropping songs, people would have been 100% in.
Yeah, I guess.
Kendrick essentially called Drake a pedophile. And I feel like in a rap battle, that's just it. Like, you just can't respond to that.
But then why wouldn't everybody just do that?
Because no one's really done it before.
I guess.
That's pretty aggressive.
But I mean, don't you think that if it weren't true, he would just come back and come up with some clever response?
Well, I think he tried. He's just like, what are you going to do? Be like, no, I'm not a pedophile. Like, what's everybody? People are like, no way, bro. You totally are now.
But I mean, that seems like...
It's terrible.
It seems like you're playing a game of cards and you just have one card that can beat every other card.
That's
like,
kind of
what's
it.
The point?
Like, literally. But,
like, that doesn't take skill then, if that's all it takes.
Well, I think there's more to it. I mean, granted, Drake has some weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
And, like, people have been making the Drake being kind of a pedo joke for years.
Well, I just remember him grooming Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah, and there were other girls too involved, like that.
Yeah,
that
I'm
people
sure.
remember from the past. I'm sure, but yeah, weird stuff. Anyway,
we got to stop bringing that up on the podcast. We got to cover other topics.
It was a pretty fun experience.
No, I meant pedophiles.
Oh yeah. Let's definitely stop bringing them up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if we all took it upon ourselves to kill our local pedophiles,
I was gonna say
we would have no more pedophiles.
Well, or if we just healed them.
Oh yeah, that's
got
true.
them into communities away from children, but communities of help and healing.
I saw some like biker dude wearing a t-shirt that said "Kill your local pedophile." And it's a pretty aggressive way to go about it.
Well, now you're opening up a different can of worms because years ago, Shia LaBeouf wore a t-shirt or a hat or something that said "Punch your local Nazi" or something.
Oh, I remember that.
And looking back at it, at the time I was like, yeah. But in no way am I saying I agree with Nazism or think that it is an appropriate
but you shouldn't
ideology.
Punching them.
Well, I think that that's not the way the world heals. And that's kind of the lesson we've learned over and over and over again from Gandhi to Martin Luther. And people still aren't getting it. Like that violence begets violence. And that punching your local Nazi, deserved or not, that's not how Jesus approached evil.
No.
That's not how the wisest and most I want to say inspiring, but there's got to be a better word. Like Gandhi and Martin Luther, Dietrich Bonhoeffer actually, who lived and died under Nazism, he was hanged by the Nazis. His response, he had this great line. He said, the only way to defeat evil is to let it exhaust itself. Because evil is made of anti-substance or antimatter, right? It doesn't have a substance of its own. So let evil exhaust itself. And he says that the way Jesus defeated evil was by letting evil try and exhaust itself against Jesus's body. And it exhausted itself, and then Jesus won ultimately. And so the way of fighting evil, like Nazism, the idea, is to take away its power and not talk about it. And perhaps even to respond to evil with love, I think. Respond to hate with love. I think that's the only way. I don't think that punching Nazis is going to bring about world peace. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That definitely makes sense.
So I think that was a great quote, letting
that's a
evil
good-
exhaust itself.
That's a good point on it. I was making the joke for the humor's sake, but I think that's a good way
No,
to
I know you were.
clarify
I know you
at
were.
least what's going on there.
No,
yes,
that was just
I think realistically,
I'm,
yes.
I'm just the one having all these tangents pop into my head tonight. But that was just like if you're one of those people who's like, yeah, punch a Nazi, or like, I doubt many of you have, if any, but just that idea, at least think about it this week. Like, what are you hoping to accomplish by punching someone, making them hate you more, and keeping that ideology alive?
They can't hate you if they're dead.
Well, their brothers can, you know.
I am just
They're fellow
I'm
Nazis.
I'm just messing.
No, but I'm saying like
yes.
no, because I think that's a valid point. Like, what's the best way to address evil? And I really think that like Jesus didn't attack evil with more violence.
No,
He let evil run its course on his own body. And I think that's a fascinating thing to think through.
he was not passive to evil.
He kind of was.
But I wouldn't say that he was passive to evil. He confronted it head on, but he understood that this world was not his final end, right?
I mean, he never attacks people. You know, he goes into the temple and turns over tables and stuff, but he's not attacking humans.
No, but he understands that the kingdom is the purpose, and that people living on this earth and fighting on this earth and dying on this earth, that's ultimately irrelevant compared to the kingdom.
Yeah, but yeah.
Again, going back to his parables, I mean, the kingdom is the focus of everything, right?
Yeah. I don't know what that has to do with the evil.
Ultimately,
defeating
I
evil.
think that Christ, he wasn't pacifistic towards evil, but
I think he was. How did he fight back against the Roman Empire, which was this evil?
Well, when Peter cuts off the Roman soldier's ear, the guard's ear,
And Jesus puts it back on. He says,
Christ
"This isn't how my kingdom
puts it
goes."
back on,
Yeah.
and he says, how does he say it exactly? I don't want to paraphrase that one.
But he definitely doesn't say, "Yeah, good work, Peter. Let's
No.
chop off more Roman guards' ears. Let's Vincent Van Gogh all these guys."
I just searched ear cutting, and this is what came up.
Ew!
Oh,
Don't show me that.
gross. Imagine losing your hearing because you body modified your ear
You
to have a
pierced
hole in the middle of it.
Pierce the what's that called? Like the cone, the shell,
That's not right.
the cup of your ear. Yuck.
What's the passage?
John 18:10.
Oh yeah, here we go. There's a few of them.
Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Oh, that wasn't about the kingdom. He does say something about the kingdom in one of them. In Luke 22:47. Anyway, this is way beside the point. Because we all know Jesus never attacked anyone and actively spoke against violence. Oh, and Luke, he just says no more of this.
In the Matthew passage, he says, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword."
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels?
It's a lot of angels.
He's basically saying, I could smoke this fool.
Yeah, it
But
never does.
I'm not going to smoke this fool.
Right.
So in a way, pacifistic, maybe more.
That's entirely pacifistic. Saying I have the power, but I'm not going to use it.
I could smoke this fool, but I'm not going to do it. What would I say? I mean, I guess I'm thinking back to his approach to evil being. I mean, hate what is evil, learn to do good, go and sin no more. I think Christ directly addresses evil, like, don't be evil. But
Yeah.
he doesn't necessarily engage with evil in the sense that we would imagine like an activist engaging with evil, right?
Well, because we're used to thinking of activism or fighting evil as protests or riots or
it wasn't
war.
like Jesus was walking around protesting.
Yeah, like rather than look at it through our own lens of what it means to fight evil, quote unquote, look at what Jesus did. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think we're both saying the same thing,
Kind of.
but in different ways.
Yeah. Anyways, that was like a little bonus meat.
Some bonus meats. It's like when you get to the end of your burger and you thought that all the meat was gone, but then you get one bite with like some bonus meat in there.
A little burnt end in
The
the end.
burnt end on the edge of the burger. Ooh.
Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for listening. Perry's. Love you. Bye.
Loves. Bye.
I don't miss you anymore.